The antiseptic tang of St. Joseph's Hospital in Chicago, Illinois, clung to everything, a sterile veil over the pediatric ward's muted chaos. My son, Lucas, lay in his bed, his 9-year-old frame dwarfed by tubes and monitors that hummed with a mechanical pulse. His face, once bright with a toothy grin, was now pale, his eyes half closed from the latest round of chemotherapy for his acute leukemia. At 70, I, Robert Hayes, felt every ache of my years as I sat by his side, my calloused hand gently holding his. The weight of his illness pressed against my chest, heavier than the grief I'd carried since my parents' deaths decades ago. My wife of 45 years, Evelyn, stood by the window, her silhouette sharp against the gray Chicago skyline. Rain streaked the glass, mirroring the tears I hadn't let fall. She hadn't spoken in hours, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. Then, abruptly, she turned. "Robert, we need to talk," she said, her voice slicing through the room's quiet like a scalpel. "I'm done. I want a divorce." I froze, my grip tightening on Lucas's hand. He stirred, his eyelids fluttering but not opening. "Evelyn, not here," I whispered, my throat tight. "Not now." He's fighting for his life. Her eyes, cold as the steel bed frame, met mine. "That's why it's the perfect time. There's nothing left for us. I'm taking the business. You can keep the house until I'm back from my conference. 1 week. She reached into her purse, pulled out a manila envelope, and thrust it at me. My name was typed across the top. Divorce petition. Without another word, she walked out, her heels clicking against the linoleum. I sat there, the envelope burning in my hands, staring at Lucas. His chest rose and fell, fragile but steady. How could she do this now, in this room, with our son clinging to life? The question gnawed at me, but beneath it, something else stirred, a memory of a phone call from Lucas, just a week before his latest hospitalization. That night, I stayed in the hospital, slumped in the vinyl chair beside Lucas's bed. The envelope lay unopened on the side table, its presence a quiet accusation. My brother, Michael, arrived at dawn, his face creased with worry when I told him what had happened. "She did what?" he said, his voice low to avoid waking Lucas. "In here? With him like this?" I nodded, too drained to elaborate. Michael, 10 years my junior, had always been a fiery one, his temper barely contained as he read the note Evelyn had scrawled inside the envelope. 1 week, Robert. Pack your things. My mind drifted to that call from Lucas. His voice had been weak, strained from the chemo, but urgent. "Dad, I need to tell you something about Mom and the company. It's important. Can we talk soon?" I'd promised we would, thinking it was just his stress talking. Running his tech startup while battling leukemia was no small feat, but then he collapsed, and the meeting never happened. Now, Evelyn's cold exit and that call felt connected, like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known I was solving. Michael convinced me to go to his house in Oak Park for a few hours to shower and eat. Over coffee, he pressed me. "Robert, you need to look into this. Evelyn's running Lucas's company now, right? What if Lucas found something?" I remembered the safe in Lucas's home office. After his divorce 2 years ago, he'd made me his emergency contact and given me the combination, saying, "Just in case, Dad." I'd thought it was about his health, a precaution for his illness. Now I wasn't so sure. The next morning, with Lucas stable and under the nurse's watchful eyes, I drove to his apartment in Evanston. The air was thick with autumn dampness, the streets slick with fallen leaves. His office was a time capsule. His coffee mug sat on the desk, a faint ring of coffee still visible. His bookshelf held tech manuals and a framed photo of us fishing on Lake Michigan when he was 6. The safe was hidden behind a sliding panel in the closet, a black steel box bolted to the wall. My fingers trembled as I dialed the combination, the clicks loud in the silent room. The door swung open, revealing stacks of folders labeled with terms like accounts receivable and quarterly projections. On top was a sealed envelope, Dad written in Lucas's shaky handwriting. My heart thudded as I tore it open. Inside was a letter and a small USB drive. The letter read, "Dad, if you're reading this, I'm either too sick to tell you or something's happened. Mom's been skimming money from the company for 3 years. I thought it was a mistake, but I hired an auditor. It's real. Offshore accounts. A penthouse in Vancouver. There's a man involved, Paul Grayson, her old CFO. I don't know how deep this goes. But be careful. I love you. You're stronger than you think. Lucas." I sank into Lucas's chair, the letter trembling in my hands. Plugging the USB into his laptop, I watched his folders loaded. Spreadsheets detailing millions moved to accounts in Bermuda and the Caymans, property records for a Vancouver penthouse in Evelyn's name alone, and an audio file. I clicked play. Lucas's voice, frail but resolute. "Mom, these transfers don't add up. Where's the money going?" Evelyn's reply was sharp, unfamiliar. "I've kept this company afloat while you've been sick. I'm entitled to my future." Lucas pushed back. "What about Dad's future? This is his legacy, too." Her laugh was a blade. "Your father's never questioned me. He won't start now." I replayed it, her words sinking deeper each time. The company, Lucas's startup, built from his college dorm room, was our pride, something we'd all poured into. How had I missed this? Days before Evelyn's announcement, I'd done something she didn't know about. Her growing distance, late nights, vague answers about the business, had raised my suspicions. I'd hired a private investigator, David Wells, a grizzled former cop who specialized in financial fraud. He'd uncovered early traces of offshore accounts and mentioned a name, Paul Grayson, Evelyn's former CFO, who'd left the company abruptly last year. David had warned me to dig deeper, but I hadn't told Lucas, not wanting to burden him. Now, I realized Lucas had been investigating too. I called David, who confirmed he'd kept backups of his findings, including emails between Evelyn and Grayson discussing removing complications. The phrase chilled me. Lucas had used it in his letter. I showed the evidence to Michael and his daughter, Claire, a financial crimes attorney. Claire's face grew grim as she scanned the files. "This is embezzlement, Dad," she said. "And it's not just fraud, it's deliberate." Lucas was on to her. She paused, exchanging a glance with Michael. "He called you about this, didn't he?" I nodded, the unspoken question heavy. Had Evelyn done something to worsen Lucas's condition? Claire arranged a meeting with Detective Mark Thompson, a Chicago PD investigator known for his discretion. We met at a diner in Lincoln Park, the clatter of dishes masking our conversation. I laid out everything. Lucas's letter, the USB, the audio, David's findings. Mark's eyes narrowed. These are serious allegations. If Evelyn's at this conference for a week, we have a window. With your permission, we'll install surveillance in the house. Cameras, microphones. When she returns, act normal. Let her think you're broken. She'll slip up if she's comfortable. I returned to the hospital daily, sitting with Lucas, who was stable but weak. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, but I couldn't shake the fear that his sudden decline wasn't just leukemia. 2 days before Evelyn's return, Mark's team wired our house in Oak Park with hidden cameras and microphones. In Lucas's safe, I found a keychain, a tiny recorder disguised as a car fob. I slipped it into my pocket, my own backup. Evelyn arrived early, her conference badge still clipped to her bag, her face tanned and composed. "Robert," she said, eyeing me as she set her suitcase down. "You're still here." I played the part, shoulders slumped, voice low. I needed time. She moved through the house, picking up Lucas's things, a photo frame, his old baseball glove, with a possessiveness that made my stomach churn. "Have you signed the papers?" she asked, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Not yet," I said, watching her closely. "Why here, Evelyn? Why on a sick bed?" She shrugged, her lips curling slightly. It was time. His illness made it clear. I let the silence stretch, then said, "Lucas called me. He was worried about the company. He found the offshore accounts, the Vancouver penthouse. Her hand froze on the glass. "You've been snooping," she snapped. "No," I said, my voice steady. "Lucas kept records, including your talks about removing complications." Her eyes narrowed. "You're delusional, Robert." I pressed on, my heart pounding. His blood work from last month. Something was off. I had it retested. Days before her announcement, suspecting her involvement, I'd sent Lucas's samples to an independent lab. The results, received that morning, showed traces of a toxin that could mimic leukemia symptoms, slowing his recovery. I hadn't told anyone, not even Michael, wanting to be sure. I pulled the recorder from my pocket. "You did this to yourself, Evelyn." She lunged, knocking the fob to the floor. "You'll ruin everything," she shouted, her face twisting with rage. The door burst open, and Mark's team stormed in, cuffing her as she screamed. He's lying. But the cameras had caught it all. Her admission, her fury, her slip about fixing Lucas's problem. That evening, Mark called. "We found a vial in Evelyn's luggage. The same toxin in Lucas's blood. Enough to slow his treatment, make it look natural." At the station, a fraud investigator revealed a life insurance policy on me, taken out 5 years ago for $3 million. Evelyn had planned to eliminate us both, securing the company and her new life with Grayson. Months later, Lucas began to recover. The toxin's effects were reversible with targeted treatment. Evelyn's trial ended with convictions for attempted murder, fraud, and poisoning. Life without parole. I didn't attend the sentencing. Instead, I enrolled in a woodworking class at a community college, the oldest student there, but hungry to create something new. Using the settlement from Evelyn's assets and Lucas's insurance, I moved into a small apartment in Evanston and volunteered at a hospital support group for parents of sick children. One evening, I hosted Michael, Claire, David, and Mark for dinner. Lucas, still weak but smiling, joined us via video call from the hospital. We toasted to his recovery, to the son who'd saved me with his courage, and to the man I was becoming. As Chicago's lights glowed outside my window, I knew this wasn't an end. It was my beginning, Robert Hayes.